Welcome to the Real Food RN Wellness Podcast, the show that empowers you to open your eyes and mind to embrace a healthful life and take your health into your own hands. With topics like detoxing, basic foundational complete nutrition, and essential oil studies and uses, you found the perfect place to start your journey to better all-around health for you and your family. Here you'll discover how to equip yourself to live healthy on your terms with your host and RN, Kate.
Now for my disclaimer. The only purpose of this podcast is to educate and to inform. It is no substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Instead, we encourage you to discuss your options with a healthcare provider. Guests who speak in this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Cathy Lemmon holds a postgraduate degree from the College of Practical Homeopathy in London, as well as diplomas from the School of Homeopathy in the UK. She has received training in psychosomatic homeopathy and homeopathic treatments of epidemics and disease from the Emma Resonance Healing Foundation. She is also certified in prophylactic use of homeopathic medicines through training from Dr. Isaac Golden in Australia, as well as Dr. Ravi Roy and Carol Lagage Roy in Germany. Currently, the biggest part of her practice is that she presents HP through seminars and webinars and also puts together international conferences. These conferences have taken place in Dallas, Texas, the Netherlands, and coming in January of 2019, New Delhi, India. She teaches about homeopathy as well. So today I would like to welcome Cathy Lemmon to the podcast. Today, Cathy, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So this is a topic I'm super excited to discuss, something I've been wanting to really heavily research myself. And I thought, what better way than to just invite one of the professionals on my podcast. And I, of course, wanted to preface this with, because I know everyone's going to say this, this is not a podcast that is meant to be pro or anti-vaccine. All we are doing today is just exploring the options that are out there for everybody, because I think it's really, really vitally important for everyone to educate themselves on all topics regarding their own health. I worked in the medical system for many years, and I know that we can't just blindly trust everything that modern medicine has to offer. So I always like to explore alternatives for my health and for my family's health. And that is the purpose of putting this podcast out there, is to help other people educate themselves. Because I know that when we consult Dr. Google, sometimes it can be really, really, really confusing for people. So first of all, Cathy, you are like so credentialed and like amazing. I would just love for you to share a bit about your story and then just kind of your history and how you came into homeopathy and homeoprophylaxis.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I guess I've studied homeopathy in a few places. I've always had an interest in natural medicine, and I've always had a drive. I love what you've said, Kate, about educating, because that's my drive to begin with, is to educate people, to help people know what the whole story is. So as far as pursuing homeopathy, I first heard the word homeopathy when I think I was still in high school, and I thought, how on earth do you really say that word, But it intrigued me, and then when I got married and started having my children, I have a son with autism now. He's 23 now, so it's been a lot of years. When I first he was diagnosed with autism shortly before his third birthday, and so that's when I was starting to get serious about actually studying homeopathy. And so it was just really interesting how it all fit together. I've been able to study homeopathy specifically through many places. I began with a simple online intro to homeopathy class all those years ago, but that really, really got me going. And then what happened with my son got me going even further. And so I was able to attend classes through schools in the UK, in Germany, in the Netherlands. And I've been able to study the non-toxic immunization alternative of homeoprophylaxis through, first and foremost, a gentleman, a homeopath in Australia by the name of Isaac Golden. And I work very closly with him anymore. And so the more I have done with homeopathy and even homeoprophylaxis, the more I've grown to really love it for what it is. Homeopathy is natural, whole medicine that works on the body's natural, inherent desire to be well. Symptoms are not something to be masked or suppressed. Symptoms are actually the body's call for help. And so that's what a homeopath is trained to do, is not just mask or suppress the symptoms, but actually find out why they're there and work with those and help promote the body's natural desire to be well.
Yeah, and I know we use a lot of homeopathics in our household, and I usually base my recommendations on like my chiropractor is really knowledgeable, and the people at our co-op are really knowledgeable. I don't know everything about it, so I always ask for help with my homeopathics, but I found them to be very effective, no side effects, and I just really wish that this would be brought to modern medicine. I don't like that it's so polarized. It's either we're in the camp of where it's all just, allopathic medicine, or we're the crazy granola people who are believing in all these weird flower things. I think that, in the world of modern medicine, we definitely need Band-Aid medicine in like the ER and surgeries and stuff like that. But it would be really nice to add in some of the symptomatic stuff that homeopathics provide by finding out why these symptoms are happening, and then having our body, Absolutely. And then also being able to give a little bit of symptomatic relief with some of our modern stuff. If we could marry the two, we just have such a great system in place. But unfortunately, it seems like we have to kind of do this on our own,
Well, it's interesting that you're saying this, Kate, because when you really look at homeopathy for what it really is, homeopathy is not... it's not herbs, it's not oils, even though, I use herbs, I have all sorts of essential oils. It is a full system of medicine in and of itself. I can tell you a little bit of the history of homeopathy. Would you like to hear that?
Yeah, I would love to hear it. I know it's been around for hundreds of years, and I had actually recently heard something about... There was something going on. What country was it in? I wrote it down. There was like a leptospirosis outbreak in Cuba, and they'd been vaccinating for that, and they ran out of the vaccine and had to use the Homeoprophylaxis, and it was actually dropped the incidence by like 84% or something. I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to bring that up. If you knew anything about that, to add that into the history. But yeah, I would love to hear what you.
Yes, and I will be happy to share more about the leptospirosis experience that happened in Cuba, because that's something Isaac Golden was one of the key figures in as well. But let me share, I guess, the first to understand more about where homeopathy itself has come from. It was about, more than 200 years ago, there was a German medically trained doctor named Samuel Hahnemann, who was actually became disgruntled with medicine even back then in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Well, no, it was the late 1700s. And he a brilliant man. And at one point he was fluent in many languages, and he was translating a book from English into his native German, a Materia Medica, which is, you would probably know, it's a book of materials that are used medicinally and proportions as to how they work. Well, he was translating it into German, and he came across this cinchona bark, or this Peruvian bark that to this day is even still used for the treatment of malaria. And he thought, as he read this, it said it was something about it being an astringent to the stomach. And he thought, well, you know what? That may be so, but I think that there's probably a lot more to it than that. And so what he did was he found some of this bark and he ingested it himself. And wouldn't you know it, he began manifesting the symptoms of malaria. And he found that very remarkable. He cleansed himself of this, and he got his health back. But the founding principle of homeopathy is like cures like. In other words, a substance that will produce symptoms in a healthy person, the same substance will cure the similar symptoms being suffered by someone else. And yeah, it's really a novel idea. This got him going. The cinchona bark got him going with it. He began looking not just at plant substances, but animal substances, mineral substances. He had his family members join him in these provings, they're called, and then he had a whole group of friends and colleagues that started doing this. He ended up doing this for the entire rest of his life. He compiled his own Materia Medica, and what one of the things too, one of the key things with homeopathy was that he found the more a substance is, we call it potentized. In other words, we dilute it and succuss it or activate it. We pound it a certain number of times at a certain velocity. Those two actions together help to get to the very energies of these substances, again, whether they're plant, animal, or mineral. And you potentize it to the point that at about what's called the 12C potency, which is basically one part of a substance 99 parts of a liquid, generally water with a little bit of grain alcohol. That's all that it ever is. Combined, you do that 12 times. Once you do that 12 times, you're to the point that there's not even a molecule of the original substance left. You are to the pure energies of this substance. And with that in mind, I will insert here that I live on a small farm. We use homeopathy all the time with our little animals, and it works with infants. So there really is no placebo about it. So Hahnemann was working on this. He got many followers. He began a system of medicine that just caught on because it was working so incredibly well. These energies, this energetic healing. It grew to the point, and it spread to the point that homeopathy came to the United States in the early 1800s, right around 1824, and it took on to the point very quickly that homeopathy was the first and almost only major medical care approach of choice in this country. We had homeopathic hospitals, homeopathic universities, over 1,000 homeopathic pharmacies. The American Institute of Homeopathy it's still in existence today. It is the oldest medical establishment in this country. The AMA wasn't established till a couple of years after this one. So homeopathy was huge in this country. It's making a good, solid comeback now because people are being tired, as you said, Kate. They want to be well. They don't want to be medicated after medicated after medicated with things that, this drug has been recalled, this drug has been recalled, this drug is killed. With that in mind, I do love to point out that there are about 5,000 different homeopathic remedies in use today, not one of which has ever been recalled.
And not killed anybody either.
Nope.
Yeah,
nope,
that's just amazing. And it's so true. I mean, people really are getting fed up. I mean, like I worked in the ICU float pool, and the ER was one of my favorite places to work because I kind of really felt like I was actually doing something in the ER because, I mean, people were coming in with trauma and we had to fix them. But we'd see what we call the frequent flyers, the people that were coming in consistently over and over and over. And those were the ones that were breaking my heart because I thought, well, why do they just keep coming in? Like, what are we missing that we're not helping them? And sure. it feels like this is, I mean, what we need to do is the system support. And if they need symptomatic management in the short term, awesome. But I think that we just really need to empower the immune system and get that cellular memory and that energetic memory within their body so they can fight it off and not have to keep coming back in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And homeopathic medicine is still very widely used in, I used to live over in Germany. I work a lot with German homeopaths too. It's used right. There are many doctors in Germany alone, and I know in the Netherlands and UK there are many that do the same thing. They will prescribe a homeopathic remedy first before a conventional medicine. It works hand in hand. It can work hand in hand with conventional medicine.
Well, the nice thing is that, like you said, there isn't going to be any side effects. Like a lot of times,
Correct.
You get the polypharmacy going with the multiple medications, and one starts causing decreased efficacy of another, or is it enhancing something of another. Like, for example, some of the medications are altered by consuming grapefruit juice, so you want to be cautionary on that. And some of the blood clotting ones are going to be affected by eating leafy greens, and so then there's these people who are on Coumadin and they won't eat anything green, and it's like, no, don't stop eating green
right.
vegetables because you're on Coumadin. Like it's so hard, but with homeopathics, that's not really a problem, right?
Well, no, and when you look at it, Samuel Hahnemann's driving point, and I'm trying to find it so I can just share it with you right now. The physician's high and only mission is to make the sick patient well.
Oh, preach. Amen. Yes.
That's it. And anything beyond this is just, it doesn't belong in medicine.
Yeah.
Hahnemann was very blunt with what he would share.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I was just kind of looking into a little bit, like I said, I've researched it some, but I just kind of felt like I was like not completely understanding it. I think homeopathic medicine is kind of hard to wrap your mind around, especially when we're thinking on energetic medicine. I mean, it seems really confusing and really woo-woo to people, but if you think about what we are mostly energy. If you look at the space of an atom, very little of it is actual mass. It's all energy and air. So to use an energetic form of medicine really does make sense, but you have to really think hard to like understand that. You know what I mean? when I first started researching, I was like, okay, so these little white sugar tablets, now what do they do? Like, this is really weird to me. But I mean, basically what it is what we're doing is educating the immune system on a substance versus manipulating the system, which is what we do a lot in modern medicine with pharmaceuticals and vaccinations and stuff like that. That's more of a manipulation of the system to try to alleviate the symptom versus educating the immune system so the immune system can intrinsically combat whatever we're dealing with, right?
Correct. Yeah, homeopathy works very, very naturally. When you think, I guess we can talk about those little white pills really quickly. A lot of people see that and they think, how could that be anything more than a sugar pill, for goodness sake? Basically what it is, it's a means to an end. Yes, indeed, they are just little sugar pills. However, what they are is when you have a substance that you have potentized, you've got to get it into the body somehow. And so years ago, the homeopaths looked at these little tiny sugar pills and thought, aha, you know what, let's coat them with a substance. So that's what they do. The little white sugar pills are coated with the homeopathically prepared substance as a means to an end, as a way to get it into the body. Sometimes the pills can be put in water, and then the energies are absorbed into the water, and then you can just take a sip of the water, take a spoonful of the water for your dose.
So is it true that you're not actually supposed to, like, handle the white tablets? I was told by my chiropractor that what you do is they come in those little blue, the ones that we get come in the little blue tubes, and you twist it down so they drop into the tube, and then you either put them in water or under your tongue. Is it true that handling them with your hands can actually kind of alter it or decrease the potency, or is that not true?
In short, it is true, because the pellets are coated with the homeopathic substance, but there is no covering on top of that. So you really don't want to do anything to compromise the integrity of the homeopathic substance. So yeah, just put it on a spoon, put it in the lid of the vial. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I never understood that until you just said they were coated, and I thought, oh, that's why. Because my kids always want to hold them. They want to look at them, and I'm like, no, just open your mouth. I'm putting these under your tongue. So, sure. And then another thing too, well, actually, I kind of wanted to get into where we've covered the homeopathy. I wanted to get into the homeoprophylaxis and how that actually works, and then how it's structured. Like, how long does it take to achieve the immunity that you desire? Is it, 1 dose? Is it 14 doses? How long you do it? I know that they do it disease by one disease at a time versus like a multi-vial or multi-strain like vaccine, and I'm not trying to vilify vaccines, I'm just comparing, but where they can give, 8 different vaccines in one dose. They just do one at a time with this. And then, I've had a lot of people asking me kind of what the cost is, potency, and like the protocol of how to do it.
Okay. Yes. And this is a huge subject, because I do a lot with homeopathic prophylaxis, HP, whatever you want to call it. Homeoprophylaxis is homeopathic. It's a homeopathic form of immunization. So a lot of people think that the word, because it's in common use, the word vaccination and immunization are the same word. No. Vaccination is a form of immunization, but so is homeoprophylaxis. Homeoprophylaxis, just a bit of history, I guess, to understand where it has come from. Samuel Hahnemann himself, actually, back in 1799, he found that there was a prophylactic use for the homeopathically prepared belladonna. Belladonna as a plant is, of course, quite poisonous, but when you potentize it to the point that, again, there's not even a molecule left, you're just down again to the energies of it. And what happened during Hahnemann's time, and it's very interesting to note that this was the same time that Edward Jenner discovered the idea about the smallpox with the cowpox. But in any case, and I will assure people too that I am not anti-vaccine. I am pro-education. Again, I want people to know what is out there, what is available to them, so that they can make an educated choice that they can feel good about. So what happened with Hahnemann was there was an epidemic beginning in a nearby village of his of scarlet fever. And he was asked to come over to that village to, treat the people and help stem off this epidemic. Well, he got to the village and he came across a family where there was a little girl who, with previous epidemics and illnesses that would make their rounds, she was always one of the first to get sick. But interestingly, while several of her siblings had come down with the scarlet fever, she did not. And he noted that she was also taking the homeopathically prepared belladonna for a certain skin issue that she was having. And the thought crossed his mind, well, I wonder if there might be something to this. And so this little girl had several other siblings. And so he took the same belladonna that the little girl was taking and treated her other siblings with it, and they didn't come down with the scarlet fever. And so he was very intrigued by this, and he ended up treating the whole village and stopping this epidemic. And the idea of this caught on so quickly that I have a book where there were several doctors, 10, 12 different doctors who saw what had happened, and they tried it themselves, and each one of them had significant success with staving scarlet fever. It got to the point that several years later, the king of Bohemia actually required the use of belladonna for protection against scarlet fever. But it went beyond that, of course. Before Hahnemann died, he was also looking into others, for example, the cholera. And from that time to today, homeopathy has been used prophylactically worldwide. It's I have records. I just printed up the Leptospirosis study from Cuba that I'll talk about in a moment. But it has helped millions of people around the world. This is why I began in 2015 doing international conferences for the promotion, for the education of the fact that there is indeed a non-toxic and just about 90%, that's a 90% effectiveness rating. And what happened in Cuba, this was in 2007, 2008, so just over 10 years ago, the leptospirosis, which is a flu-like symptom, and it's very prominent. It's endemic to that country, especially in the rainy season, so from about October to February or so. And the vaccines were not working. And so they decided to go ahead and try a homeoprophylactic approach. And that's it was exactly what you said. It was right around 84% effective. And it was at that point that they called Isaac Golden over to let him know, hey, look what we're doing, and it's working. So he came over, and he helped, because one of the things with Isaac Golden, what he likes to do is he likes to look at the statistics and examine the numbers. He's not afraid to question anything, even his own numbers. He wants to make sure that everything he presents is rock solid. And so he came over, he looked at it, and he said, wow, this is really working. And he found, as far as the cost was just about, and he'll say this again and again, he's been the speaker at our conferences, the cost is about 1/20th of what vaccinations were costing. And it was noted as well, too, that not only did the disease leptospirosis take a nosedive once they started using the homeoprophylactic approach, the incidences of it stayed down, because people want to be well. The environment wants to be well. And this is another part of homeoprophylaxis, too. Because it's homeopathic, it works very naturally with the body. It's given orally. There's not many diseases that you can get from a shot in the arm, and it's been known, and Hahnemann wrote extensively about this as well, too, that the body can only actively work against one disease at a time. So what does the body do when it's assaulted with, 3 vaccines and with 3 immunizations in one shot, 3 vaccinations in one shot? It doesn't know what to do. And sometimes, a child is given 12 vaccines in one fell swoop. But basically, the body really doesn't know what to do. So what we do with an HP approach is do it just one at a time, working with the body. The protocol that we put together through the organization that I've created, Homeoprophylaxis, a Worldwide Choice, we focus on just 8 diseases. I have nosodes, which are the special homeopathic medicine used for primarily for prophylaxis. I have nosodes for more, but we focus on with this special kit that we have for childhood HP, just 8 diseases. And it's done one disease once a month, and there's even a little handbook that goes along that helps parents be able to document this. I also help people with HP for travel when they go to places, like certain places in Africa or, the Far East where diseases can happen. I help people with travel HP all the time. There's even a homeoprophylactic nosode for flu prevention as well.
So say that I was like going to Thailand in a couple weeks and just learned about this and wasn't vaccinated and wanted to do a homeoprophylaxis as a way of protecting myself, going to, a foreign country. Could you accomplish the full protocol before the trip, or would taking one dose even protect you, or what's the length of the protocol?
Okay. Yes. And that's a good question. And another thing we can talk about for a very long time too. Basically, As far as there's two different ways to look at homeoprophylaxis. There's a long-term approach and a short-term approach. Short-term is what we generally do for people who are just going to Thailand for a couple weeks or whatever. And there's a different regimen that you need to take for that because you need the protection when you go, but you're only going to be there a short time. So there's as far as travel homeoprophylaxis, there is a protocol that I have my clientele go through where I send them actually to the CDC's website. They have a CDC WAC travel or something like that, where you can go to the country, whatever country you're going to, and see what immunizations are currently recommended for Thailand or wherever you're going. And then we talk about it because what's even better beyond that is if you happen to know someone actually on the ground in the country that you're going to, ask them what diseases are going around. Like right now, there's a yellow fever is making another round in Brazil. So that there's that issue there. So we talk about it, we discuss it because the CDC will have generally more immunizations. And I freely use the word immunization because we're talking either vaccination or homeoprophylaxis. The CDC will generally have way more than will really be needed. And so I do a special consultation with whoever's wanting HP for travel, and we whittle it down to what they feel best about. I'm not going to tell them what to do. It's their trip. I will support them in what they want to choose. If the CDC recommends 8 and they want all 8, I'll help them with that. If the CDC recommends 8 and you really only need maybe 3, that's what we'll do. So
you had talked earlier about the C as the potency, and I've seen that on the little vials where it's like the 12 or the 30 or the 60 or the 200. Would the 200 is the strongest, or is that the weakest? Or would it be like a stronger potency if it was a short term, like for a travel?
And that's a good thing. And it's kind of hard to grasp around because you think, wait, the more it's diluted, the stronger it gets. It doesn't make any sense, but it's kind of like fractions. A quarter is larger than an 8, even though the number 4 is smaller than number 8. But in any case, the more you dilute and succuss a substance, the more powerful it becomes. The C, like 200C, the C is the Roman numeral for 100. The X is the Roman numeral for 10. And then we have M potencies, M standing for 1,000. So it's generally for short-term prophylaxis for travel. The general potency that I have been using, and I know Isaac Gold uses the same, is the 200C. And then there's also specific regulations that I am working to make sure that I'm following with my organization, Homeoprophylaxis, a Worldwide Choice, HPWWC. There is what we call the Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia of the United States, the HPUS, and you can look them up online. That has been in continuous publication since 1897, and that's what regulates homeopathic medicines, how they're produced. And you need to look for homeopathic remedies, homeopathic medicines that have HPUS certification on them. And and this is something to be aware of as well, too. In 1988, there was a CPG section 400.400 that was established with the US FDA, which very clearly states that this is the procedure that needs to be followed for homeopathic medicines. Homeopathic medicines are inherently safe. They're not going to hurt you. When they're properly used, there's nothing harmful in them. They're just the pure energies. And so this CPG section 400.400 needs to be there and has been, for more than 30 years, it's been effectively regulating homeopathic medicines. Now, we are to the point that the US FDA is trying to usurp power over regulation of homeopathic medicines, and that needs not be done. I've actually been over to Washington, D.C. and spoken with the FDA myself about this. But yeah, we need to protect homeopathic medicine for what it is. There is an organization I will mention here called Americans for Homeopathy Choice that was started by a couple of, I love calling it a mad mom organization. It was started by a couple of mad moms in Houston who saw what the FDA was wanting to do and just said no, absolutely not. Yeah. And so they've been fighting. If you can get to their website, homeopathychoice.org, and follow what they're doing, that will be fantastic, phenomenal. I've worked closely with them. They're actually who I was with in Washington, D.C. Yeah, they're a fantastic group.
Now, you did mention the HPWWC. I do want to touch on that a little bit, but I wanted to just get back real quick. So we talked a little bit about the travel and how it's a little bit maybe more of a potent dose and a shorter duration. What about for children who say their parents they just don't feel like doing vaccinations for whatever reason, and they decided that they wanted to explore homeoprophylaxis as an option for them? What is the full protocol? Is there any factors that factor in, like, if they are like maybe autistic spectrum, or if anything like that would factor into the length or how you would do the protocol, or is it pretty standard for everybody? And what would be the cost, if you can give me that? A lot of people were asking how much would this actually cost if they were to do this for their children?
You bet. Well, what I actually put together the protocol for HPWWC, following what Isaac Golden has been doing, following what I've worked very closely with a couple of German homeopaths, husband and wife team over there, who've been doing HP for at least 40 years. What we do is we look at the children that, the parents will tell me about their children. Basically, I get a health outline for each one of their children that they want to start on the homeoprophylaxis. Generally speaking, number one, HP is not going to hurt anything. So if there's issues such as the autism spectrum, such as, food sensitivities or allergies or anything like that, I need to know about that. But basically what happens, because homeopathy works with the body, and so does homeoprophylaxis. Generally speaking, they can consult with me if they have any questions, but there is a schedule that's set up in the HP handbook that's available right on Amazon, but it goes right along with that. There's about, again, it's one dose of one nosode once monthly, and then you walk through all 8 before you repeat any. With that being said, and I have totally forgotten your question, Kate.
Oh, I was just asking about like whether or not you needed to have like the certain factors that factor in with the homeoprophylaxis for children, and how long it spans out based on like their predispositions and the cost.
Sure.
And the cost.
Okay. So as far as the children, the long-term HP protocol that we put together is right now, it's currently at about 32 months. Some parents want to add maybe a nosode or two. We do not have, while I have a nosode for chickenpox available, we don't have that as part, because chickenpox can be such a beneficial disease to just simply get. It's a minor disease. Correct. The same thing with measles, although measles is part of the protocol that we have established. So again, the protocol is right about 32 months. And yeah, I do a little kickoff consultation. I've actually got that recorded now. I'm getting more and more of my stuff recorded so we can just get more out there.
Yeah, awesome.
And so I've got your back. Once you get going with HP, if you have any questions, you can contact me or any other practitioner who's affiliated with HPWWC. We're having a growing number of practitioners joining in with this. And the thing is, the key with this is, years ago, when I first learned about the work that Isaac Golden had been doing in homeoprophylaxis, he's been studying it since the mid-1980s. Again, my children were so young, but I was looking at this non-toxic source of immunization, and I was literally wanting to stand on the roof just dancing, and here it is, you don't have to be afraid, you can get the immunization. I want it in your hands. If I could just throw it out and have the world have it, I would love to do it. But with that understanding, what I actually really do work to do is keep this as affordable as I can. The long-term childhood HP program is less than $500.
Wow! So that's the full 32-month immunization that covers 8 different diseases.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Yeah, that's super affordable.
Yes. I want it in your hands, and I've had many families who that's even too much for them, and I totally sympathize with them because I've been there. I know how hard it can be sometimes. So I have a really easy payment plan that
especially if you have like a lot of kids. I have 4. It adds up quickly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It does. Yeah, but I want HP in your hands, and I will work with you to help it get there.
Awesome. So yeah, that's fabulous. So yeah, you had mentioned the HPWWC. Could you just share a little bit about why you started? I know you're doing some international conferences. Why you started doing these, and kind of what and where they are?
You bet. We began the international conferences back in 2015, and the first one took place where I live here in Dallas, Texas. And Isaac Golden was our keynote speaker. We had speakers come in from all over. Actually, that was even Andrew Wakefield was one of our speakers then. But that was so successful. I began that because when I first connected directly with Isaac Golden in 2013. He actually helped me with my son, my son is doing remarkably well now. He's in his second year of college taking classes that I never would take, like physics and everything, and he's doing very, very well.
Yay, that's awesome.
But I went in 2014, I went back to Germany where I lived when I was in college, and I met with the names of Dr. Ravi Roy and his wife Carola Lago Roy, who have been doing HP for even longer than Isaac Golden has. And I went to visit with them, and I visited physicians where I used to live in Germany, and I remember so clearly being on the train going from Ravi and Carola's place in beautiful Bavaria, just thinking, homeoprophylaxis is huge. Homeoprophylaxis is huge. There can't be one way to do it because it's huge. We've a record of some 20 million children in India who, from 1999 to 2002, they'd been suffering from Japanese encephalitis, but within that 3-year period, there were no further cases in this one part of India, thanks to homeoprophylaxis. I mean, it's helping millions around the world. The Cuba experience was with people of all ages, not just children. And so I just thought, we've got to get this out there. So when I returned to Dallas, one thing led to another, and the 2015 conference, the inaugural conference for homeoprophylaxis, a worldwide choice, took place. That was so successful that we had our second conference in 2017 that took place in the Netherlands. And we had people there from at least 10 different countries. We had speakers from around the world, from Japan, Australia. Again, Isaac Golden came. Tarako Yui, the woman who brought homeopathy to Japan, she was one of our speakers as well. We had speakers from India, the UK. It was phenomenally successful. And so we have just recently announced our next conference, and this one is going to take place in New Delhi, India, in January of 2020.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely link to all that stuff too in the show notes here. So you guys don't have to, crazily write all this stuff down. I will have all of this stuff in notes too. So. Right. And that one, the India one is still in development. So yeah, keep your eye out because it's going to be fantastic. That is very cool. I love that a lot of this stuff seems like it kind of is available in like Europe, and it's like really common there, and in other countries, and here in the States, we're just, it's like it was here and now it's starting to come back. So I'm so excited to record podcasts like this to kind of get the word out and just educate people and help them to make informed decisions about their family. One other point I wanted to touch on too is that the way that it's administered with the little white tablets that you put under your tongue, the little sugar pills, is the way that we naturally acquire disease in the environment. When we get sick, we get it through our mucous membranes, and that is how our immune system knows how to work. So that was one of the things where it was a little bit challenging to understand how they thought of some of the medicines that they use and stuff where it's injected through intravenously. I understand if you're septic and you need antibiotics in your bloodstream because you have very sick blood, basically, you're going to need IV stuff. But the fact that a lot of the stuff that we give is given through injections, when that's not naturally how our immune system would handle the disease, kind of puts up some flags. So I really love that homeoprophylaxis and homeopathic medicine is our natural way of acquiring disease and fighting it. So it's educating properly, Absolutely. And if I can insert this here too, one of the things that I point out, and I do many, many presentations. I present about HP throughout the country, internationally as well too. One of the things I make sure to make mention of is one of the people that spoke at our 2015 conference was Tatiana Obukanich. She's an immunologist from the Ukraine, but she's living in the Seattle area now. But she points out too, and I make sure that I mention this too, what has become the gold standard as far as an indicator of immunity in the conventional world is the presence of titers. Titers, antibodies. Tatiana points out too that the body's production of antibodies is technically one of the last things it does when it's responding to a disease pathogen. And they've actually known for at least 20 years that the presence of titers is not necessarily going to be an indication of immunity, especially the one that I point out in my current webinar is pertussis. They've known this since at least 2002, that the presence of an antibody PT or pertussis titer does not necessarily correlate to immunity. Whereas one of the key doctors in the Cuban experience, his name is Dr. Gustavo Bracco. He was so struck by how well HP was working
prophylactically against the leptospirosis that he thought, I've got to look into this further. And so he did an experiment with some mice. And he took a group of mice, exposed them directly to the leptospirosis virus, and they all died. He took another group of mice, and he treated them first homeoprophylactically, and then exposed them to the virus, and 80% of them survived. Not one of them produced any antibodies. So this is the homeopathic view of it, too. An immune response is a lot more than the presence of antibodies / titers. It's a full body thing. So this is why I feel HP can be as effective as it is, right around 90% effective, because it works with the body and its natural desire to be well.
Yeah, and that is the best medicine. is not medicine, it's enhancing the body's ability to do what we were made to do. Mother Nature Absolutely. Didn't get it wrong.
No, she knew what she was doing. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. This has just been so informative. I am just very, very excited to just learn more and more and more and more about this and dive into your website and look at those kits. And I'll link to all this stuff in the show notes below. Is there anything any additional comments that you want to make or anything else that you wanted to discuss that we didn't touch on?
Well, I can say this. My husband, he's brilliant on the computers. I'm no good at all. But we came across, and he is working on another website that it's just simply called Homeoprophylaxis.education, not edu. It's a full word, education. And it's going to be on that place that we're starting to put a lot of studies. We're going to put links. Actually, on hpwwc.org, there is already a link for Isaac Golden and some of the things that he will share with parents, with professionals. So you can pull that up. But we're going to have a lot of information on homeoprophylaxis.education as well.
That is so great that you guys are putting this all together to help the masses. That's the beauty of the World Wide Web. We can educate just by putting up a website and get to everybody in the world that has access to a computer or a smartphone.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I will link to everything below, and I look forward to getting this out to my audience.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for listening in to Real Food RN Wellness Podcast today. By tuning in regularly, you will begin to take your healthful lifestyle into your own hands and develop an empowered attitude about yours and your family's life. If you want to be the first to know about the latest news, recipes, and healthy living tips, then go to www.realfoodrn.com and sign up today.